This is an ad by BetterHelp. BetterHelp recently surveyed over 16,000 people and found that while 75% of people believe it's wise to seek support, only 27% of Americans are in therapy, and people stay silent to avoid being judged. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching you with the right therapist. Because we're all better with help. Visit BetterHelp.com/stopthestigma for their first ever State of Stigma report, the latest in mental health research.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Check it out now.
Gill Alexander, Beating the Book Podcast, NFL Draft 2025, or maybe the draft we're most confused about ever, perhaps. With me, Vegas Refund, Luke Swain, kind enough to join us on the podcast today. How you doing, Luke?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Second straight year with Luke. And Drew Dinsick, co-host of the both the Deep Dive podcast, which he does with Andy Molitor, and, of course, NBC Sports Bet the Edge, which he does with Jay Croucher. And he also does the Deep Dive Dailies now, the Daily Deep Dives with Andy. And Drew, we'll start with you because you have a hard out. What we know in the biz is a hard out in 15 minutes. So you got to vomit out everything you want to say here. I'll start with this, and then you can go wherever you want with this. Because this is how we started this morning when you were on a numbers game, which is, all right, we think we know the following. We think we know Cam Ward is going to Tennessee 1. We think we know Travis Hunter is going number 2 to Cleveland. We think we know that Abdul Carter is going 3rd to the Giants. And maybe we also know that Will Campbell is going to New England at 4. Do we know all that? And then do we know anything after that for sure? And you can go wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would put the top 4 right now and price it around 95% chance that that's the way Kurt breaks. Top 3, I would price it around 99% chance. There's still an inkling of doubt in my mind that the Patriots don't find a trade partner for 4, or they don't do something else that we catch as unexpected. But yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a chalky first 4 picks, and the drama and interest really starts with the Jags at 5. The fact that there's been this kind of orderly procession of rumors about the Jags at 5 feels a little bit like intentional on their part, that they're floating interest in all of these guys just to see if they can drum up any potential trade possibilities. I think the Jags would like a guy to take in the trenches, and that's not especially sexy at 5. They would like to kind of maybe move down to 10 where the Bears are and have the Bears come up to take Genty at 5, and then they can take, their choice of big body on offense or defense at 10. So, I get what they're doing, but, once it all kind of settles, I got the funny feeling that 4, 5, 6 could potentially be offensive line. The tackles at the top of this, this group are pretty clearly standout players as far as kind of long, lengthy tenures at the position. Even if they're not, necessarily blue chip players. And so that may, that's kind of the whiff that I'm getting right now. But I also think that we've done this 6-7 years. We've been doing this. This is an annual tradition. It goes way back. And this cycle has had these are the smallest liquidity pools that have ever existed for the draft. Like the overall, there's not a lot of drama in terms of books will be celebrating or crying on Thursday as far as these outcomes go. The only market that I've seen any two-way action on, right? And I'm sure Luke could back me up here, but the markets where you can rebet, the markets where you can get $1,000 a stake, those have gone one way, all of them, except for first wide receiver. That's the only one where there's going to be really any drama because people have been pulling between Tet and Golden. It kind of just searching for any clues, any sign, which way that was going to break. I spent a good amount of time watching, Cowboys press conference today. And first of all, it felt like elder abuse trotting Jerry Jones out there to do this. It was absolutely just a brutal scene. Second question he was asked was, what were your thoughts on the Luka Doncic trade? So, it was an informative time spent watching that, as you could guess. But, it kind of feels like it is going to be up to him and however he wakes up and however he's feeling on the day. Like, let's go get a guy with the big catch radius. Oh, give me the guy with the speed, right? Like, it's just going to kind of be sort of the day of decision there that's going to flip that one way or the other. And again, like, I don't see there being many other markets, at least now, that have had kind of significant two-way action from a betting standpoint. So
I say corner.
Corner. That's a good call.
Yeah.
By the way, even the Dallas thing, like if Teteroa McMillan is available at 12, where Dallas picks, no one can seem to even agree upon what makes the most sense for the Cowboys. Would Jerry Jones be mesmerized by Golden's speed, or would he take the complement to what CeeDee Lamb brings to the table in a guy with a catch radius, as you call it, with McMillan? So I don't even think there's agreement on that necessarily.
100%. And even more. I don't know that they've decided, which is even sillier. They're going to have their choice of wide receiver, and we're not going to know until Jerry Jones wakes up on Thursday morning which way he's feeling. To this point, I really am not sure where the betting drama is going to come from.
All right,
on Thursday.
So while we have you, Drew, so if you think there is a scenario where it goes offensive lineman, 4, 5, 6. Where then does, if I said to you right now, Ashton Genty goes where? Your answer is?
I'm shocked that there's so much certainty he's going to go in the top 6 right now. I think that's kind of hopeful. I think his agent has done a magnificent job this cycle of making it very clear that everybody would be interested in Genty. And the problem with Genty is even his ability as a player or his projection as a pro. There's a lot of guys that are not that far behind him and value that you can get on day 2. So you're really using a top 6. You're really trading assets to go get him. Like none of this checks out or makes any sense to me at all. So I'm going to say he slides to 10 to the Bears, and I'm way against consensus there. But I think we did not turn on a dime where Saquon Barkley and the Eagles win a Super Bowl.
Oh, did we lose Drew and Luke? We lost them both, I think. We lost Drew. Luke is still there. We'll try to get Drew back here. I should probably have started this, Luke, by saying, and I don't know if this applies to you, but the history of the draft in terms of draft betting for most of us was that up until about exactly 2 drafts ago, this was an ATM machine. I had drafts where I was like 12-1 or 8-0. Like, it was that ridiculous back in the day. And then 2 years ago happened, and I had the C.J. Stroud to go number 1. Surely the Panthers were not trading up to draft Bryce Young. I had C.J. Stroud every which way plus money. That didn't work out. And that was the first draft where it's like, you mean you could actually lose money on this sometimes? And last year was a loser as well. I don't know about you. You, I think, have won every time. Is that true?
I got bit 2 years ago as well.
Yeah.
Last year was really good, but 2 years ago was the Will Levis. That was the mine that just exploded everything. That had a ripple effect. And then it was the Seahawks as well in that draft, going Witherspoon super early and Jalen Carter dropping to 9.
Right.
But that was the draft, and I hope that draft's an outlier, but I will say this draft feels a little bit like that draft, which is scary, but okay, because it creates opportunity to bet into.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that opportunity. You came on the radio side the other day, and I thought you had a great point. Drew's back. Andy Molitor, Drew's podcast co-host on Deep Dive, said this well on their show too, which is, and Drew, I think it's both of you guys are on the right track. In a draft that is so uncertain and that we all feel like we don't really have our arms wrapped around, the opportunity then exists in taking shots in things like positional markets, like New Orleans, the one you gave, Luke, last week, and we put it out as a clip. New Orleans Saints to go D-line or edge was plus 650 at the time. I actually found a 7-1 at MGM. it seems to me that that's the way. Like, it's almost like you have to let your brain toggle to, okay, I'm comfortable not knowing shit. Am I allowed to say shit on YouTube, by the way? I'm comfortable not knowing that, and so that's the way I ought to play that, right? And that there's a lot of sense to be made in that. Either one of you can go. I'm not sure. Drew, you can go because you got it right.
I love that call. Yeah. Honestly, Michael Williams 9th to the Saints makes sense to me, especially if the offensive line run early.
And I think that's it, because otherwise, the way that we used to know, it's like, oh, this guy's clearly going here and this guy's clearly going there. That's not going to be an optimal strategy. Here's sort of a random, sort of yearly question. We know the guys at the top. Let's say we think we know the guys at the top. Beyond 4, then, and we'll go beyond 5 because Drew, you might be on an island, as you were saying this morning, with Graham going to Jacksonville. Imagine that at this point. Who's the player? I guess we have to get rid of Genty to the Raiders at 6. But who's the player that matches with the team after that you feel most confident about? Is there anyone later in the draft? Remember how we had drafts where like, oh, Najee to the Steelers. That's absolutely happening at 22 or whatever that was. Do we have any of that this year?
I'd say Walker to the Panthers.
Yeah, that would have been my number 2.
Walker
number
to
8.
the Panthers at 8.
Yeah, at 8. Yeah, if he gets there, which I hope he doesn't. But
why? What bet do you have that makes you hope he doesn't?
I just took like exactas for him to go 4, 5, or 6, which at crazy odds, I want to say last month, which 4 is out of the picture. I mean, 5, I genuinely believe no one has any idea what Jacksonville's doing. And you could say any name right now, and you could make it into a story with Jacksonville. But I feel like 6 is probably, with the Raiders, the best bet. But as you get closer, the top 6 or 7, it's harder to include him than it was a little bit ago. But Walker to 8 with the Panthers feels like the strongest consensus right now.
And Drew, I was talking to Andy a little bit about this yesterday, which is I think we both admire how you come in confident about Shedeur dropping, and you even to the point where you're saying he could go second round, which you could absolutely be right about that. I'm not saying you're not. I think that there is a scenario where that actually happens, but you really don't see, and this is where I'm like, wow, you're super confident about this. You really don't see another team in the 20s or something panic going like, oh, we still need a quarterback. We should really go and get Shedeur. You don't see that happening.
A lot of times your opinions in these sort of things ebb and wane. I'm actually gone further. I don't know that he has a good fit at the top of the second round.
Wow.
Like, I'm not hearing anything positive about any of the teams and the quarterbacks as far as like matches at the top of round 2 that makes me think that number 1, anyone's going to give up assets to go get him in round 1, or that number 2, like he has a clear and obvious floor. I mean, we really could be waiting a good while, and it could come down to some team just being like, well, it's a second round pick, backup quarterback option for the Rams. Sure, why not? Right? Yeah. Like that's kind of where my head is at right now, just because his market feels super duper soft.
And that makes it interesting too, because if you're to believe what like the McShays of the world say, if most evaluators have Dart and Sanders in whatever order, as if they were to have been drafted last year as QB 6 or 7, right? That's the other thing. So they've got to fight their talent evaluation versus this desire, and a justifiable desire to have a quarterback that hits at some point. Like, you got to hit a home run with one of these guys at some point because you're nothing without a quarterback. So that's the conflict, right? It's like, okay, I know that, but if they're actually not all that good, if they were drafted, let's say last year, what are we really doing? By the way, Drew, you'll love this comment. On YouTube, we get comments, so we're able to read live. Grinch 26. Hopefully, Michael Lombardi will join to share his thoughts on Trey Lance and Mac Jones.
Oh, man.
That's
that
awesome.
aged funny. Hey, what? Hey, the only guy besides Trevor Lawrence that has a starting job out of that class, Justin Fields. I don't know. I think time's coming around on me for that one. Although at the same time, Mac Jones is finally a San Francisco 49er.
Yes.
So that was a funny podcast.
He was right. It just took 3 years for him to be right. He finally got it.
What would you set a Shedeur line at, Drew? Let's just say the
right
8.5. Yeah.
34.5 probably.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd say that him going in the top 10 is not happening, period. Him going in the top 24 feels very unlikely to me. Yeah, I mean, unless there is a team like the Steelers who have secretly, quietly, completely fallen for him, and it's just going to take him at 21. Where's the match? Like, there's too many good guys who can contribute in like the 10 to 50, 40 range that like teams are just going to be like a risky asset at quarterback that's going to be a project, or a guy that we think can start for 8 years. You know, like there's too. Yeah, the market's very, very soft on him right now. I'm sure you've heard this, you read this, like the teams at the top of the second, I just assumed, the team like the Browns would just go for it. And now maybe they have eyes for someone else. The Giants, I know, have eyes for someone else, or at least they're not aligned that Sanders would be their guy. So yeah, like who, what, when, where? Like, is there going to be a fight over positioning for, guys like Jackson Dart and Show in the second round, and Sanders is just left without a prom date? Like, that's kind of the way this feels.
I think we're gonna look back at these 8.5s and realize how much of a missed out generational wealth opportunity it was, because it's exceeded. It's just, it's crazy to just haven't moved it, but
yeah, the 8.5s being what that used to be his positional.
Well, it's still 8.5, but like it's juice minus so 400 the over.
Wasn't there
when it was
Matt Brown was he had a 3.5? Wasn't there a 3.5 at one point?
Yeah. Caesar's had a 3.5.
Brutal.
But when it was like the over was bettable, we're gonna look back and realize how much of a missed opportunity it was to just put net worth into it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Drew, you got to run.
I will say the other two kind of high confidence ones, you mentioned Walker to the Panthers at 8. My day at this point is going to be made or broken on Mykel Williams having a hard floor at 15 to the Falcons, and Kelvin Banks having a hard floor at 13 to the Dolphins. If either of those guys slides, I'm going to be upset on Thursday or Friday. I'll be figuring out who to pay what on Friday if those two don't come through.
I'm with you on Mykel and Banks. I wish I was with you, but.
Drew, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, guys. Best of luck. I can't wait to see the rest of it.
Drew's got to run. He's got stuff to do. The man is very busy.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Brandon Shoemaker, Dart lined at 24.5 on the over-under market, 83% implied in the first. Crazy town, he says. I don't know. We'll see. You know how teams get with quarterbacks. Brian Rhodes, Jaguars either trade back or take Genty. Etienne is getting moved. And Eric F. Dart seems to be QB2 at this point, so not surprised that market, talking about Shador, would like a no market on Dart or Sanders for the first round. That's what he'd like to see anyway. Where do you stand on the quarterbacks? Do you think there will even be... McShay was saying yesterday, take Todd McShay as one draft pundit for what it's worth. He was saying under 2.5 on quarterbacks. Like, he's convinced it's not going to be 3. You're with him on that?
Yeah. And I think I say this every year. I try to avoid the quarterback markets, but in past years, the under 2.5 would be super juiced. And I think right now the under 2.5 is still plus money. And I heard McShay say that as well. And McShay's been, in terms of what he's been giving, has been great. Like, it's actionable. How much we trust it is to be determined, but I would be with him on the under 2.5. That's one of the ones I wrote down. I can see that moving pretty quickly within the next 24 hours.
What about for running backs? Also set at 2.5. Are we saying 3?
So like 2 weeks ago, Henderson came out as being like the trendy first rounder, and then it kind of started to dive down. And then within like the last day or two, like Jeremiah really made a stance on Henderson yesterday on one of his shows, saying he thinks he's going to go in the first. And then if you look at his big board, his top 150, he has Henderson in his top 32. I think he's exactly 32. And last year, I think he got 31 of his 32 in terms of who got drafted in the first round. And
Jeez.
I would bet the over on Henderson, or excuse me, on running backs. Probably.
You bet the over.
Yeah.
So you think 3, but you just to clarify, you don't have a bet, but you would if forced to.
Yeah.
You'd go
if
over.
it's plus money, I would. I wouldn't lay just on the over. No.
Speaking of that, can we go back to Genty for a second, and then I want to hear some more of your bets. But the Raiders at 6, and I think Daniel Jeremiah said this, who was the draft pundit I'm more often than not going to, and I think he had a great point about this, which is when the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, and most people were like, wow, that's an overdraft. I can't believe they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. People think that's hilarious now, but they did at the time. The difference was, and I think it was at 12, the Lions had in place their offensive line, Penei Sewell and everybody else. The Raiders don't. And, I still cannot fully believe, as much as we're hearing, the Raiders are going to draft him at 6. I know Pete Carroll's a running back guy. And I love Genty in college, but he is smallish. He is a Mountain West player. Are the Raiders, who are not as prepared as the Lions, genuinely going to draft that dude at 6? That just seems nuts to me with all their needs.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's either the Jags or he might slip to the Bears. I'm not on board with the Raiders taking Genty at 6. I think they are firmly in play for an offensive lineman. Where his over right now, over 6.5 right now, I think it's super juiced. It's plus 250. It's probably even going to get higher with all this noise with Genty to the Jags. But to me, I'm not buying Genty at 6. I'm somewhat buying Genty at 5. I'm buying a couple things at 5. But if he doesn't go to the Jags, I can see Genty getting to 9.
So if he goes to 10, that's fine, because I have Genty over 9.5 at plus money.
Yeah.
At 10, right. I'd love that. But now, because the Jaguars now are rumored, depending on who you listen to this morning, Genty's going to the Jags at 5. I even heard McMillan's going to the Jags at 5.
Yeah.
Because who wouldn't want McMillan? Well, I'm a big McMillan guy. By the way, I bet Golden to go ahead of McMillan at plus money, and I wouldn't even draft it that way, but that was based on some earlier mocks as well. What do you believe with wide receiver? Who do you think goes first? Do you have any sense of that?
So the trendy Tet to the Jags, and where I'm at with the Jags, and this kind of factors into the wide receiver, is it almost seems coordinated, where you have Breer, Jeremiah, McShay, and one of the other big guys all have come out and saying they're buying Genty to 5. Where I want to say this morning, Breer came out with a piece saying that he's on board with an offensive player going 5. And then a Yahoo insider, which I don't want to say he's nothing you're going to bet off of, but Charles Robinson said an offensive weapon to go 5. That's quote unquote, he'll leave it at that. And what I take out of the Breer quote is he could have just said Genty, but how he's specifying as an offensive player kind of leaves the door open to someone like McMillan. I mean, at this point, the Jags are so buttoned up, they've had 0 meetings, that you could say Tyler Warren right now, and I would buy it. And I really just don't think anyone has any clue. But there's been enough momentum for Tet that I would buy Tet to be the first wide receiver. Broadus, who is a Cowboys insider or beat reporter, has flip-flops. He was Golden. He was Tet, then he was Golden, and now he's back to Tet, which he's been right in the past. But I think the best way to attack that would maybe be Golden's second wide receiver, which I think is pretty cheap right now.
Who's the first tight end, Loveland or Warren?
Warren. I get the Loveland steam, and I honestly am surprised it took this long. I'm not buying it. I think Warren is definitely the first tight end, and if you want to attack that, I think if you want to get value on Loveland, I think taking an exact pick with Loveland, whether it's for him to go 10, top 10, whatever it is, would be the way to go that. But I think Warren is one of the few blue chippers in this draft.
Okay, which are the bets that you have? And I'm understanding that some of these might not be available. Maybe none of them are available still. Which are the ones you feel the best about? Which are the ones that you deeply regret, that you hate yourself for, that you've made?
So in terms of the over-unders I've made, it's less than in years past. Yesterday I did Mason Graham over 5.5, which I had been looking for a reason to bet that over. And as the noise picked up this in the morning, I pulled the trigger on it. And as the day progressed, I tended to regret it because you saw like the trade scenarios and it being leverage. And I usually don't get got, but at one point I felt like I might have. But then we woke up this morning and I had a breath of fresh air on that over. I'm definitely feeling better on it. I would not lay the prices for an over 5.5 gram that he is right now. But I have Michael under 15.5, which I feel pretty good about that one. I have Mike Green over 17.5, which is probably the one I'm most concerned about, but I still think it's good. And then I have Omario Hampton over 19.5 and Shador over 8.5. Those are the only over-unders I have right now.
What did you lay on the Shador over 8.5, just out of curiosity?
Minus 130, minus 140.
It's awesome. That's like my Travis Hunter going second. I laid minus 135. It's by far it's not my biggest bet. It's one of the two biggest bets. And so if that gets home, I can't get crushed, and it looks like it's getting home. I can still lose, right? But if the one that you recommended last week, if the Saints to draft a defensive lineman / edge goes first, then it's a winning draft. Nothing else matters in all the other stuff. And all the other stuff is kind of limited, kind of wacky stuff. Was there another team to position that you bet like that, New Orleans defensive line one?
Yeah, so I wrote a few. I mean, I got a few plus money. I think for positional, the big one, I wrote down a few. But Steelers, I think defensive line, which is plus 180, is a great one, which you're really attacking the quarterback angle there, which defensive line is the favorite. Quarterback is the second favorite. I think it's plus 300, plus 400. But quarterback being in play at 21, I think is creating value as defensive lineman at 180, which Derek Harmon is a great play. Grant at the Steelers is a great play. And usually the Steelers pick leaks. It hasn't yet, but it does leading up to it. And it hasn't yet, but I think defensive line's a great play there. One rogue price that I found was Packers O-line 16-1. That one is, am I allowed to say the book that it's at?
Yeah, go ahead.
That one's on FanDuel. That's somewhat of a rogue price, but Greer in his piece this morning came out where the Texans were interested in trading up for offensive linemen, and he hit on the Packers being a sleeper team for offensive linemen that they would have to get in front of. So the Packers at 16-1, I think is a great bet. And the Vikings D-line, that's plus 410. That one, it's been a consistent theme that the Vikings GM, he made some free agent moves on the defensive line in free agency, but he's also made it pretty clear that he wants to add another guy in the trenches, which at 410, I think is value. And this is another one where the consensus is kind of creating value, that everyone's just slotting in whatever safety falls to the Vikings, whether it's Malachi Starks or Imanori. Can't pronounce his name. Which that's plus 200, which I wouldn't bet at that number. And defensive line being plus 410, I think is a great value there. And the last one I add last two, I think Cowboys to draft wide receiver at minus 150. I mean, if you can't pick who's going to be the first wide receiver, you're covering them both. I pick 12, which at minus 150, I think it should be much higher. And the last one, Eagles O-line plus 350. It's pretty known that Howie drafts premium positions. O-line is, I think, minus 110. Or excuse me, D-line is minus 110. O-line is the other premium position he always drafts at plus 350. Just based off of his history and the guys that are going to be there, I think is a value bet as well.
That's the last point you made, I think, is the key one to these, which is we can't, especially in an uncertain draft, right? You can't anticipate what's going to happen before your pick. So there is a lot of buzz that there might be a run on defensive linemen. A lot of people think maybe even in the top 10 that there might be a few going. And if the Eagles see that happening in front of them, they're not going to want to pick the sixth best defensive lineman, right? Like things change. Exactly. And so those markets, getting that offensive line price at that price plus 350, that's why that makes sense as a really good bet, because we just can't anticipate what's going to happen, nor can the Eagles in front of them. So that's sort of our advantage in an uncertain one. So I think those are all great. So if I asked you right now then, and maybe you've already answered it with one of those, but if I said, okay, someone's landing on this right now and they're like, okay, I've never been in an NFL draft before. I want to make a bet here. What's the bet what's the most conservative play I can make right now at a relatively, non-obscene price that I should feel the most confident about? What's that play I should make?
Ah, man.
I'll tell you what Andy Molitor answered to this question yesterday when I asked that. He said over 14.5 SEC players first round, which, by the way, is nuts to just think about, right? That like half of the first round can go to one conference, but that's where we are now.
And I wrote down the under.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Which I totally get why the over for me, and for SEC, which it's like plus 200 right now. And if we factor out Jackson Dart falling out of the first, I can only get to 13 with about 2 or 3 guys that are less than a coin flip, which I think I would under 14.5 if Jackson Dart falls out of the first round, which is somewhat looking like he might, would be where I would bet it. But I fully understand. I feel like SEC goes over every single year because it's the SEC. But I fully understand that bet.
That's also the biggest thing too, is there are so many ways to bet. Like if you have conviction on one thing, there are 3 different ways you can end up betting it, right? Oh, this team to draft that position, that player to go positionally, over under. There's different ways where you can manipulate the best price. So that's the other thing you have to be creative about with these drafts. You also do NBA, NHL, and MLB drafts now too, right?
I do.
Which is the one as we sort of look forward? I mean, you don't live in Nevada. Nevada, we barely get access to these props, so we have to mule it out to DraftKings or FanDuel, if those things were allowed. Or we have to do it offshore. We have to do it in faraway places, whatever, because the offerings are so sparse. Do you see this ever becoming sparse where you are elsewhere besides Nevada?
So this year, everything came out super early, like earlier than it has in the past 2 years, but it definitely stalled out in terms of like them adding more.
Yeah.
Where I want to say in a draft like this, where the uncertainty is probably at an all-time high, it's been frustrating. Where if it was a different draft, I think it would be a lot more bettable. But it's a year-to-year thing. I believe in power and positive thinking, and I will cry if it gets any worse than this.
Yeah.
But NBA is the moneymaker.
Really?
Truly.
That was my next question. Like, which is the one that is the most solid at this point? NBA, really?
Yeah, I think so, because NFL has just become such a mainstream event where there's so many more people betting into it and somewhat ruining it in terms of the odds, since it is so sensitive. And NBA, you don't have to deal with like positional value, where it's a positionless league, so you don't have to worry about elite positions getting drafted earlier than they should, where in the NBA it's just big board, top to bottom. It's as simple as that. There's less info out there, which makes grinding the NBA a lot more advantageous compared to you can just go into Twitter and click on anything right now for the NFL draft. NHL and MLB those are
something else. Yeah.
Those are, yeah.
All right. So back to the question, which I let you skate on, is if there was like a conservative price one right now, can you think of anything? Maybe, I mean, what's the under 2.5 on quarterbacks? That's still a reasonable price, right?
Yeah. I think that's super bettable. And I mean, it's moved, I think it was plus 150 yesterday when I checked before we hopped on. It's plus 105, which I think still is super bettable.
Okay, we'll do that. And real quick, because for those who just missed it, repeat the teams to positions again real quick.
Yeah, so Steelers defensive line. These are all FanDuel odds. Steelers defensive line plus 180. Packers offensive line plus 1,600. Vikings defensive line plus 400. Cowboys wide receiver minus 150. Eagles offensive line plus 350.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Cool. What's the thing that happens here that ruins your draft? What's the thing that will sink you?
What will sink me is more than one random guy jumping into the top 10. So
Jumping
right now,
out
like
of the top 10, yeah.
Yeah, so that right now there's like the consensus 9, and they can really go in any order, and they're still going to go top 9. Where if one or two random guys jump into the top 10, that's where you get somewhat of like the Will Levis ripple effect that creates a domino effect, and everything else is just shattered. But as long as the consensus 10 guys, 9 guys go in the top 10, I'll feel good. And if they don't, then we are looking for food stamps.
We're looking. It's probably not that dramatic. And if any one of those, because what I say is, if that New Orleans defensive line edge thing hits, it kind of makes my draft. Nothing else really. I mean, that and the Travis Hunter thing, it really doesn't matter what else happens. Are any of those the same story for you? Like if any of those positional things hit, it's kind of
Saints would be fantastic.
Yeah.
If Jalen Walker goes in the top 6 or 4 through 6, that would also be fantastic. Those are, the Saints is big, and D-line's favored now, which the fake CLV is always nice. And I do think in Nick Underhill, he's the Saints beat guy that on NewOrleans.football, he's the guy you want to pay attention to. And D-line being favored, QB is still the second favored. If you want to get into that market, I wouldn't blame you for popping a few other positions if you'd like, because QB is still throwing it off.
Yeah.
Underhill thinks they're going to go tight end if they fall. But I still
yeah, I'm just thinking about team. I grew up loving Washington, and I'm just thinking about what position would they take first, and however those are priced, I would take a long shot crack at one of those too, because there is no telling which way they would go. Washington, who picks? You have an idea for them?
Well, yeah, I mean that is a great one, because right now D-line is favored, and Ben Standig, who's the athletic kind of insider that I follow, I mean it could roll. I mean when you're picking at 29, they have no idea.
No idea.
And that's a team that could need a running back, could need a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Which are definitely big odds. You could get Abuka there. You could get Henderson there. And at the same time, even an O-line. When you get in 25 or later, that's when you want to do the long shots, because how the board falls predicates everything.
Totally. And any of those positions that you just mentioned would actually make sense. And Abuka, by the way, was the guy that I remember, the early mocks. He was to answer that question that I had earlier, what's a team that is associated with the player deeper into the first round? It was always Washington with him. So I wonder if that ends up coming all the way around. Who knows, again, at 29, what they're thinking and what will be available at that point. Anything else we're forgetting? Just like a comment you want to make here on the way out where you're yeah, go ahead.
2 round 1 guys, I think, are with Donovan Jackson, which is plus 200. He's O-lineman out of Ohio State. He's been getting some buzz. The Texans, Jeremiah even said he would make sense for the Eagles, which Jeremiah is somewhat connected to the Eagles. And then Dick Scorton to go round 1 at plus 220, I think is another good one, which I could see. Standig has been beating that drum on Nick Scorton to go to the Commanders at 29. Which at plus 220 in a market that has somewhat been beaten down. It's hard to find good long shots, but I think those 2 are good. And then the other thing I just want to mention is a lot of these books allow you to parlay round 1 guys. And that is a great way to either boost someone like a Donovan Jackson's 180, 200 to 300, 400, whatever it is, or just parlay a couple huge favorites. There's definitely value in that. And these odds aren't real, like I've said.
That's right. It's all bullshit odds. That's the thing.
And a minus 1,000 guy very well could be minus infinity if we know he's going to go in the first round. And being able to parlay him with a minus 300 guy brings it down, and you add legs and you create value.
Do you know offhand, off the top of your head, which books allow that and which do not?
DraftKings and FanDuel allow you to parlay.
DraftKings and FanDuel will allow you to parlay in the jurisdictions where they're allowed to even post the draft itself. because some there are not.
FanDuel lets you parlay positional odds. FanDuel has like a parlay menu, first wide receiver. You can mix and match. I haven't done it yet, but those are the two.
And then do you end up betting when the first round is complete? There are some books that do put up some second round positionals. Do you end up betting those?
So last year they didn't put up any new ones. They adjusted guys that weren't drafted and just rolled them over, which
I see.
If they put them up, I will definitely be betting them.
You will be all over that.
I would love to.
Will you post them at Vegas Refund on Twitter? Will you share any of that with folks?
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay, you'll share. He says he'll share. I won't hold him to it. All right. Listen, it's one of these drafts again where I just feel like we have to shift how our brain was from a few years back, where it's like, oh, we're going to murder this draft, right? Like, we're so far ahead. Our information is so far ahead of the books, who are just kind of posting this sheepishly. And now, the last couple of years they've done all right, and I don't really know why. For instance, like here in Nevada, they're still their unwillingness to in any way allow for a lost leader for bettors. They couldn't even give the bettors just a little thing. And you've won the last couple years. So that's still their stance on this draft, and there's not much available to us. But I do think your strategy of the positional things with teams is the best way to go. And all it takes is one or two of those, and you are going to be good. This is from Grant Subic. Seeing Sanders plus 350 to be a second-round pick on FanDuel. Would you take a flyer on that?
Second round, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, I would definitely take a flyer. Yesterday, they posted under like the promotions, they posted Sanders to go 15 or later, which opened at plus 188. And now it's like minus 250, which if they have that prop, I'm guessing they removed the other one. But yeah, I would definitely take a flyer on that.
Okay. Appreciate everybody who chimed in here. Let's see. Oh, Brandon, did I already say this one? I'm just hoping someone can explain what business Dart has being minus 400 to go in the first round.
Yeah, that one's just fake odds. Like it's just not real. Like the implied probability of that doesn't match up. And when he was favored to go in the first round, I'm guessing a bunch of people bet into that one and just boosted it up. But I would love a no as well. But it's not two-way.
Not two-way. People definitely have their opinions on stuff here. Let's see. Brandon Shoemaker also, Dart plus 190 to be second quarterback off the board at Bet Online if you feel that way. DT plus the points. Dallas trades number 12 to Denver for Cortland Sutton and number 20. So people just... But this is, by the way, this kind of thing, DT plus the points, most of the draft punditry that we've seen this year, I don't know how you feel about this, Luke, I feel like it's just them speculating and giving opinions, where in past years it's like they were acting on intel and they were reporting on intel. And I think by and large this year, like you listen to some of these podcasts and you're like, well, that was 30 minutes of them just speculating.
Yeah. And like normally I have about 10 to 15 over-under bets. Like usually tomorrow I really ramp it up. But right now I'm sitting at about 6 or 7. So to give you an idea of like the uncertainty, I have half of the amount that I usually do around this time.
Yeah.
Which it's okay.
It's okay.
But we'll see.
You're not required to unload, man, if it's not there. All right, man. Luke, appreciate it very much. If I don't talk to you beforehand, good luck with all the draft bets, man.
You as well. Go Saints.
Go Saints. Go D-line edge, Saints. Come on. Luke Swain at Vegas Refund. Drew before that, of course, at whale_capper on Twitter. Thank you for watching. Good luck with all your bets in the NFL draft.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.